Hello and welcome to The Pouch. This morning we have a special interview. You're with me, Greg Savage, and we've also got Jake Farr-Wharton on the other end there. Hello, Jake.
Hello.
Hello. And we are joined by Mark Greenhill, who is the mayor of the Blue Mountains, and he joins us today from, we presume, a bunker somewhere, Mark, here in the forest. You've probably got some secret bunker that you're hiding in at the moment. Is that right?
That's right. Concrete bunker way below the city. No, I'm on my back deck looking out over the bush. Unusually at home. My mayoral diary suddenly became a very empty thing very quickly. So normally I'd be, at some event or other, opening something or other, but now I'm on a back deck looking out over the bush.
Well, we presumed...
Not to say I'm not working.
We presumed, Mark, that when you heard that the Pouch, the podcast, wanted to interview you, you just completely cleared your schedule, and that's what it sounds like.
Oh, yes, that's it. That's what it was, yes. Absolutely. Sorry.
So welcome.
There's some other issues, I think. Yeah. I said the opposite. Clear everything.
Yes.
No openings, nothing.
Yes, hold my calls.
That's right. They're very long interviews. Welcome to the idea behind the Pouch, Mark, is that it's sort of a safe spot to sort of talk about politics. The idea being that we live in a sort of a time where there's a lot of polls showing that people don't have trust in government, but at the same time, people who you don't think would get voted in. So our first question really to you is how good is Australia?
How good is Australia? I've got both thumbs up at the moment. Did you know that, and obviously I know the reference to how good is, it comes from our PM, and I noticed that on his Twitter feed, which is very funny, Paul Keating refers to the PM as two thumbs, which is obviously a reference to the two thumbs up, and and how good is this and how good is that? How good is Australia? Well, it is actually a country that's going through, like the rest of the world, a very hard and frightening time at the moment. During the bushfires, the most recent ones, and since I've been there, we've had two significant bushfires over 7 years. I'm not responsible for the fact that there happens to be bushfires while I'm there. It's nothing to do with me. But what I found during the recent bushfires, as with the fires before, is that Australia appears to be a very small place. That is, at times of crisis, people reach out. But what's happened in 2013, we were the only ones in crisis. 200 homes in an afternoon lost and 790 homeless. The whole of Australia reached out to us. In the fires of 2019-20, we were one of many communities wrapped, and yet Australians reached out. And now it's interesting. I think sometimes the media tends to focus on the bad things. So with COVID-19, if you were the casual observer, you'd think, how good is Australia now? Well, not as good as it was during the fires, because you'd say people hoarding and things like that, and that's focused on, yes, that's happening. But there's also a lot of really good things happening now too. I get messages about moments of great generosity happening right now, which are reminiscent of that spirit we saw during the fires. The people up here have set up a Facebook page basically for elderly folks who can't get loo paper. Well, if you know of any, let us know. They say we'll get some to them.
That's fantastic.
A group of people. There's a social media group here of people who will shop for the elderly, for the less mobile, for the unwell, who'll go out and look after others. There's that's a smoker's cough in the background. It's not COVID-19. They will. Oh no, I went the wrong way. Okay, good. I'm just going into the bunker. But there's moments of great generosity still, and I think the media is focusing on the negative, and it is a negative thing that needs to be called out. I agree with that, but we can't lose sight of the fact that Australia is still a place full of very generous people.
Yeah, and you've brought up the 2013 fires. We've got here a quote from a website from you, which was that you said a memorable time in my local government career was leading the community through the October 2013 bushfires. Obviously, as fate would have it, you were asked to step up again towards the end of 2019 when our recent bushfire crisis was gaining momentum. Can you talk us through your sort of your thought processes and what you saw as the role of local government during that time? Because similar to this crisis, you would have had to have stepped up pretty quickly.
Yeah, it was interesting because being mayor of the Blue Mountains is a part-time job. So I have a full-time job as well. And during 2013, I got up to go to work the day the fires hit, and I knew there was a fire to the west of us out near Lithgow, and I was really sort of trepidatious going into work. What I didn't know was that during the day another fire would start up actually inside the city. Power lines clashed, and inside the city a fire would start up, and that fire on its own would take nearly 200 homes. We lost a dozen to the fire at the west. So I went into work that day, and I got a call from the RFS to say things were looking pretty dire and I should head home, referring to the western fire up in Blackheath Mount Vic area. And as I was coming home on the train, I got another call to say, look, this other fire started up at Winmalee. It started up within the city. So normally with bushfires in Blue Mountains, they approach us from a distance and you see them coming, as with this western fire, which started off when the military in Lithgow thought it was a good idea on a 40-degree day with high winds to start letting bombs off and munitions. And suddenly a big fire started, and obviously someone would have gone headed in our direction. But anyway, so there's two fires in the city that day, and I've been on the council for a long time. I've been deputy mayor, but I've been mayor for over a month, and suddenly I found myself thrust into the media spotlight, not just here in Australia, but globally, and we had the 10-day crisis, and I was also a volunteer firefighter, so I was very busy at that time being mayor and firefighter, but obviously I didn't get to do as much firefighting as others did. I only got to go out once or twice actually that time, and I was busy being mayor, but it was a trying time, and obviously emergency services are the ones who fight the fires, but during what's called Section 44, which is a declaration that's made times like that, the city is marshalled under the firefighting effort. So all of our plants and equipment, our trucks, our staff, our water carriers, our graders, our earth movers, our bullets, everything gets marshalled to the effort. And the role that fell upon me as mayor was basically to be a spokesperson for the community. And then after it, after the fires, I chaired the bushfire recovery effort. One of the things that was disappointing was that the state government exited very quickly and left us to it. And so we had to cobble together a recovery, which turned out to be reasonably successful. Insurance companies weren't necessarily covering all of the costs, not necessarily their fault, because full replacement didn't necessarily mean on a policy replacing to the new fire code. So some insurance policies were short. So I was critical of the insurance companies at the time, possibly a bit over the top, but I was. So I started a mayoral relief fund. I started raising money, created my own charity in the mountains for those people who were impacted, and we raised millions of dollars. No corporate donations, no government donations, just ordinary people, and we raised and community organisations donated, and we raised a lot of money and got that out to people. We started that fund again this time around. So it was an interesting time. It was in the aftermath there was also moments of great joy. I mean, funnily enough, when it was all over, the support we had from the whole world was incredible. The Dalai Lama came, spent 2 days with us, spent 2 days with the Dalai Lama. Try walking into a hotel room to meet the Dalai Lama. You walked in and there he is sitting there in a hotel room in Lura.
Yeah.
He looks up at you because I have no hair. he looks up at me and says, another monk. We spent a couple of hours sitting together talking about world politics, and he held my hand the whole time, and we spent the next day together, and he had me stand up on the stage with him. We talked to each other well. I mean, there was, I also had Kate and William came and visited. And I remember being a Republican thinking, oh, gosh, I have to do this because it's an act of great generosity, but, I'm not a monarchist. And I was sort of, it's lovely that they're doing it, but, people think I'm a monarchist because I'm, here with the royals. And I was sort of really, really impressed by their generosity, but really sort of politically conflicted.
Yes.
Well, as soon as he got out of the car, there's sort of something inside me goes, oh, my God, Princess Diana's son. I became starstruck, and I was not the distant politician, but just very embarrassing, really. But they were wonderful. They came and they spent time with community. They went and met people who lost their homes, and they were more down to earth and more generous than any politician I saw. And I was deeply impressed. I'm still a Republican, by the way, but they were absolutely awesome. So the world reached out to us at that time in the aftermath of those fires and helped us recover. This time around, and the story of the fires is a long one, so I won't go into it. But I will if you ask me later, of course. But now, just to finish the point, now the recovery is different.
Yes.
Fires went for longer. We lost houses. We didn't lose as many as 2013, but we lost houses. The emergency went for much longer. Some businesses in the Upper Mountain are down 77%. We emerged from that straight into the storms and into the coronavirus. And our poor tourist economy up here is absolutely flattened. And I think the combined effects, sadly, of the fires and the storms and now coronavirus will be catastrophic.
Yeah.
I don't think, just an aside, because I'll finish the point of the question you asked, but just as an aside, I don't think it's good enough for national governments to talk about deferred loan repayments or interest subsidies at a time like this, in my opinion, and meant to be an old lefty. But this is a time that governments actually inject cash directly into the economy, into small businesses directly to help them get through. The last thing is more of the debt.
Yeah, good point.
But anyway, so this is a very different fire, and there's no royal visits to lift us back onto the world spotlight to showcase our city. There's no Dalai Lama coming to again showcase us and lift us back on the global spotlight. Say we're beautiful, keep coming. There's none of that, and we're now having to hunker down to get another emergency. But this time, we're with the rest of the world.
Yeah. We there's a common enemy this time, rather than sort of people feeling bad for us or wanting to know how they can help. It's sort of everyone's got their own version of this event, don't they?
Unlike the fire, this is an invisible enemy, which is why I think some of the pictures that people see, are things like, scuffles in shopping centres, which are probably quite rare, because there's no enemy you can see. You can't see a wall of fire coming at us now. It's an invisible germ.
Yes, and pretty well anyone can have it, which doesn't make it easy. It's a difficult one.
No, it doesn't. And look, there was a cathartic thing with the fires. With both sets of fires, I can go out onto the fireground and eyeball the bastard. I can't eyeball this thing that's impacting my city. I can't go and look at it. And it's frustrating in a way, because it's possibly even more deadly. I mean,
yes,
yeah.
We lost no human life in those two big fire events. I'm not sure that's going to be a case this time. in my community.
Yeah, no, it's. I think governments at various levels are grappling with exactly that, and public health officials are grappling with that exact same premise at the moment. Of we simply don't know how this is going to pan out, and frankly, how many people are going to be impacted, both individuals and families.
Yeah, and your question was all about what's the role of local government in those times. In the fires we had cities' resources to marshal behind the fire effort, but what the role that I ended up having was sort of, I guess, community spokesperson, which was, although there was the bricks and mortar role that we actually physically play, marshalling our resources behind the effort, my role became in both fires one of, voice of calm, voice of hope. If I could muster that successfully or not, I don't know. But, talking to the community every day, urging people to be confident that we'll get through this. On this occasion, rather than marshalling the forces, getting our organisation out there onto the front line, our trucks, our vehicles, our people, what I'm doing this time is I'm withdrawing. I'm closing parts of the city down, almost all of it, actually. Our theatres are going to go this, as well now. I'm withdrawing the city instead of sending the city out to battle.
Yeah,
I'm shutting it down. But what remains is that the community needs a voice, and they've got a voice, I guess, in the national and state governments, and locally I try to give them a voice as well. It's a different voice.
Yes.
But it's a voice nonetheless. And it's in these times, the role of local government, I think, is to be, this is only my personal view, and many would not share it, but the role of local government is to be deeply apolitical. Even though I'm a deeply political person, it's all about, you've got to reach out to everyone, even those who don't think like you, and try and give them hope.
Yes.
Yeah, and you brought up before about raising the money, and it's interesting that in 2013 you did that without, I presume, without like Instagram and without social media as sort of a backbone of that fundraising. We saw Celeste Barber raising over $25 million on her Instagram account alone, or something like that. And it's really interesting that at the moment, that digital connection is where everything's at, and that's where that's how we're getting our information about the bushfires. That's how we're getting our information about coronavirus, and that's how you are. You're obviously I'm a member of the local pages here, and you're active on those pages. You take selfies in front of lagoons, and you take selfies in front of the local zebra crossing that was done in Blacksland recently. Indeed, so it's like you go, I've crossed there. That's awesome. That's great. That's a good cross. But I guess
I looked both ways.
Yeah, leading.
You don't have to wait.
Responsibly, yes.
Yeah, if you go there now, it'll be empty anyway. And so social media. How are you using and viewing social media during these times?
Oh, look, I'm 53, so I'm sort of, I grew up as a young man in the 80s. I never thought I'd see such a thing. We don't have a social media officer, so when people message me and comment, it's me that replies, and so it takes up a lot of time. But I think it is an effective.
I'm available on Saturdays, Mark. I can probably
local volunteer.
It's really, really, really good. It gives a community leader, if you will. I don't know if that's the right term, but it gives community leaders or community voices a chance to actually talk directly with the community itself. I mean, I used to work in a past life I was chief of staff to a cabinet minister, and I was senior advisor to a premier, and we sort of very heavily thought about, workshopped and filtered major statements before they were made. Yeah. But now, someone catches you on social media, you've got 5,000 people watching literally, and you reply immediately, and it's so unfiltered, and you can't take it back. So you've got to avoid. Sometimes someone will make a comment that it warrants an instinctive response. It's usually a two-word response, ending it off. And you obviously don't do that. You have to stop, pause, and exercise great control. But that's, I was going to say that they're rare instances. They're not that rare, but I have managed to never do that. But so yeah, it's a great tool, but with it you need to exercise great caution as a public figure, and you need to be also mindful of the fact that most people are deeply generous, but also some people that aren't, the opposite, are maybe coming from a place of great frustration or fear. It could be great frustration with your organisation, and that's justified. And so you have to try, before you respond, put yourself in their shoes, take 6 breaths and then respond.
And I wonder whether you can comment, Mark, now on sort of how you see yourself and the role of the as the mayor and the role of the council in this sort of emerging crisis now and threat of COVID-19. Sort of what role do you see yourself playing? You mentioned earlier that really you're there to bring hope and bring a voice for your local area. But how does that actually play out? And what is the role following the dissipation of the virus?
Well, it's interesting. When we did corporate planning 12 months ago, we didn't plan for fire, flood, and pestilence. It wasn't something that you'll find on the slideshow of our corporate plan. Yeah. It's not a role that we've had or I've had much time to actually think about. You're sort of thrown into it. So you come through the fires, breathe a sigh of relief, and then suddenly there's the rain events and our rail line gets washed away and there's flooding all over the city. I mean, how you flood on a mountain, I didn't know it was possible, but trust me, it is. Then you come into a global pandemic. And so, to be perfectly honest, a lot of it's made up as you go along. I mean, You're responding. You can't really corporate plan for something like this. And my day job is in corporate Australia. I know that a lot of the people I work with would be horrified to hear this, but there's sometimes the strategy isn't far thought out. It's immediate, and in some cases, particularly when you're running a local government, it is necessarily reactive. And so a lot of it's reactive. A lot of it is about a given circumstance comes up. Take yesterday, the PM's announced that there are new rules around how many people can be together and what the space is between them. And so suddenly you've got to look at all of your facilities, those that are left open, and say, well, crikey, what's that mean? So you're reacting to stuff. And there's no prior communication. We don't get a note to say this is about to be announced. You hear it in the media, and it's immediate, do it now, bang. So a lot of it's reactive. So really it's waiting for things to come and taking the community through a response that deals with those things as they arise. It is unfortunately very much reactive. So then the challenge is to react well.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that along with that sort of distrust in the government at the moment, that sort of underlines a lot of the conversations, like you've said, on social media and things. I think that spills over when it is this reactive situation, doesn't it? Because, like you say, you don't get any notification about this. I know that there were some media reports yesterday that basically schools didn't really know that NAPLAN was going to be cancelled until they announced it on the Sydney Morning Herald or whatever. And so it's but the community would presume that you had some inside knowledge and that you were keeping that knowledge from them. So there's a fine line there, isn't there?
Yeah, I found out. Well, actually, how I found out about the new distancing rules was, I was in the car and I heard it on the radio, and so I very quickly rang the council CEO, so sort of I'm the head of the governing body, the elected body, and she's the head of the organisational part of the business of the council. And I rang her and said, "Hey, they've just announced this." She goes, "Oh gosh!" So she gets on Google to get the announcement. That's how it works. So I mean, The thing with local government, at least with my local government, I don't have any spin doctors. So when I say something, either on social media or in a media release, they're my words. And so when you're reacting to things moment to moment, there's no sort of group of people that come to you and say, these are the words you should use. So A, you're reacting, B, in the local government sense. Unlike the other levels of government, it's a very real response, and it's usually completely unfiltered. I mean, we have a comms team, but they're not like a spin unit. They don't do my social media. I do that on my own. They might draft a media release that I'll then look at personally and adjust. But there's no people sitting down to me saying, "Well, look, this is the line we're going to take. This is the spin we're going to put on things. This is our, this is how we think you should be." There's none of that. So you're reacting, and what people get when they see me speak is my particular reaction to these issues. Okay, this challenge has come up. Now we've got to do this, that, and the other.
Do you feel that your previous roles as chief of staff of the minister and advisor to a premier, do you feel like those types of roles, given that they involve a lot of refinement of information before you go and speak to the most important person in the room, do you feel like those roles have prepared you well for this type of role as mayor, particularly in these types of crises?
Well, probably. I mean, I was Bob's senior advisor, Bob Carr's senior advisor in the 90s. So it was a fair while ago, but the memory is still fresh. And then I was a chief of staff in the early 2000s, so nearly 20 years ago. So the memory is still fresh. I mean, you can't work with someone like Bob Carr when he was the height of his powers as Premier of the state, and not be deeply impacted by that. I think. I don't know if I've ever told him this because I still see him from time to time, but around we bump into each other. But I think Bob had a big influence probably on me. I think he was the state's longest serving premier, and obviously I didn't work with him when he was foreign minister, but as premier he was just incredible. And so I think I don't think there'd been anyone who can put a flame to him. Seen something Bob Carr and Neville Rand stand out as incredible leaders. So I think there's probably a response. I mean, working for him was amazing. I mean, he was just brilliant. He was actually brilliant. Yeah, I think it had an effect. Funnily enough, for a left-wing politician, I mean, my day job's in corporate Australia, which is kind of paradoxical, and I think that's helped too.
Yeah.
Sitting back, thinking rationally, looking at, it gives me an ability to sort of pull the politics, but also the finances of the organisation together, because finances are finite, and in times like this, you've got to move things around, you've got to pay for them. Because if you in New South Wales, if you're not running in the black, the state government has the ability to sack you, and they don't tend to like local government current mobs, so you don't want to go in the black. So constantly, as we're dealing with these issues, I've got to think about how the organisation remains solvent while we deal with all these crises. So I think those experiences have helped. Yes, so I'm legally qualified. When I say legally qualified, I have a law degree, so I think that helps as well in the sense that you can at least read the legislation and understand your responsibilities. So I think I'm lucky. I've got some decent experiences that might help.
I wonder.
Sure, there are others who could do the job much better, but I mean.
Well, I wonder whether you can talk just on that exact topic. I wonder whether you can talk about, and obviously, Mark, just very conscious of your time, so please do let us know if you do need to wrap up.
No.
But yeah, very keen to understand why you became a mayor, or rather, why you were interested in becoming a mayor, and sort of what drives you as a mayor.
Well, the story, how I got on council is a more boring story to how I became mayor. But I got on council because back in the 90s, someone wanted to put a development behind my mum's house up here after I moved here from Glebe, and I thought it was a decision. Oops, I swore. So I ran for council and inflicted myself upon the community thereafter. So that's how I got on council. But how I became mayor, after 2012 council elections, we had the numbers, my mob, to take over. he's a sitting mayor. He's actually a Liberal, a guy called Daniel Miles, and I had a lot of respect for him. And he's a sitting mayor, he's doing a really good job. So we got together and had a chat, and we said to him, look, do you want to continue on? You're actually doing a really good job. He was a bit of his politics are quite different to mine, but he was a consensus person, and we thought, look, if someone's governing the city's interests, why not support them for a while longer? So that's what we decided to do, and I was his deputy mayor prior to the election and remained his deputy mayor afterwards. But then he formed a relationship with a lovely woman, and he wanted to focus his time on that. And so he came to me and said, look, it's after a year of the term, he said, I'm going to go away and focus on this relationship. You can, if you take over as mayor. Now, a couple of things arise from that. One is my time as mayor has lasted a lot longer than his relationship, so I'm not sure it was a great investment for him. But the other thing is that he said in filling the role to me, and I've been deputy mayor, I've been on council for a long time, so I've seen it a lot close. It's a breezy role. You go around, you cut ribbons, you make speeches, and they put on a cup of tea. It's a great role. Well, sort of 1 month into this great role, I've got the 2013 bushfires and smoke, sirens, and flames everywhere, and I felt I'd been sold a raw deal. But so I became mayor because the previous guy fell in love. And my relationship with those communities lasted a lot longer than his. In fact, it's 7 years now, so it's a bit disturbing that my election's at the end of the 7th year, which could be in the 7-year each. Who knows? But so that's how it happened. That's how I became mayor. I became a councillor because of a development I didn't like behind my mum's house, and I became mayor because the previous guy fell in love briefly.
Well, the love affair for the Blue Mountains, we spoke about it a little before the show. It's easy to fall in love with this area, isn't it? What I suppose once all this is over, what's your sort of message for people about the Blue Mountains, and why should they come here other than just obviously there's a few trees and a little bit of sky and that sort of thing. What is it about the Blue Mountains that you love and that you'd like people to reinvigorate into? And just as a side note on that, actually, I was at the gym last night, and I don't know if I'm even meant to admit this at the moment, but anyway, my gym was open, so I went, and I was the only person there. It's in Springwood. I was the only person there for a few minutes, and I thought, well, it's nice to be the strongest person in the gym for a while. And I thought, I'm going to drive up Springwood here, one of the villages in the Blue Mountains. I'm going to drive up Springwood, and I was going to go in and buy something, just because I felt bad that the whole town would have been empty, but it wasn't. It was packed. It was jumping. Like there was no parking spaces. The restaurants were full from what I could see. The takeaway stores were full. It was like everyone had pulled together and sort of thought, well, it looks like things are going to get shut down. Let's all give it a bit of a last hurrah. So turning the corner from my gym, it was like entering another world into this this bustling village. What is it about the Blue Mountains that you think is unique for visitors?
Well, it's the only city in Australia that's wholly within a World Heritage Area, and so it's something to behold. That it's an absolutely stunning place to be and to be in, but it's a lot more than that, because within that place is a whole bunch of communities that live and operate differently to the communities down in Sydney. So when you come up here, there's the beauty of it, but there's also, for the visitor, you're suddenly immersed in this different way of living, and that's an experience in and of itself, an experience to behold. Unfortunately, there are, in my opinion, those who want to exploit it. There are those who have certainly worked hard to try and get rid of me unsuccessfully, because they'd like to do much more development and you commercialise and flog off parts of this beautiful place, and therefore walk away with a pocket full of cash, having wrecked it. But so there's a great responsibility to defend this beautiful place, not just the visitors, but also the types of communities. Because once you start whacking up blocks of flats and things like that, you lose that community that people come to visit as well. there's virtually no multi-story up here. There's no high density. There are a few lifts and escalators in the Blue Mountains. It's all sort of on one or two levels, and it's all, as you say, we don't have towns, we have villages, and they literally are villages. And so it's the place, it's the people, it's the vistas, but that's actually quite fragile, and there are powerful forces that want to change that. And if you start whacking in high density development in an area like this, you don't just change the natural outlook, you actually change the community. So part of that sort of artistic, beautiful community people come to see will go if that stuff's allowed to happen. The big concern I've got is that at the end of COVID-19, what will our economy be like up here? Like, will those businesses that form part of that vibrant community still be here, or will they be replaced by rows and rows of dollar shops? I don't know, and I hope it's not the latter, because that then feeds into the type of community people want to come and see. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so desperate to force a very strong support of small businesses up here, so that the vibrancy can be maintained. But it's very much the communities and they're sort of spread out 20 odd towns and villages. Each one's different to the other. The artisans, the artistic markets, the beautiful place. I mean, all of those things are reasons to come here. It's different to Sydney, yet it's so close to Sydney, and that's something special. When this is all over, we're going to put a lot of effort into making sure that's all here, so that people can come and have that same experience and should come when it's time.
So I suppose final question, Mark, before we wrap up, and this is a bit of a gotcha question, so I apologise for throwing it at you. But where can you buy the best souvenir tea towels in the mountains?
Well, I'd like to say the Blue Mountain City Council visitor information centres, but I just closed them.
Maybe in 3 weeks' time, maybe.
maybe in a few weeks' time.
Yeah.
No, look, I mean, our visitor information centres are lovely, but no, the best place to go, perhaps not for a tourist tea towel, but for something distinctly Blue Mountains, is into the street. Not the big places necessarily, but the little places where people make their own stuff and sell it. Those going into outdoors and going into maybe away from the major attractions and into the little streets and into a shop that's been lovingly tended for years by someone who produces their own stuff. That's where you'll get the best tea towel. It won't be a tea towel, actually. It'll be something far better.
A fridge magnet.
better than a tea towel.
It might be a handmade sandal.
Oh, fantastic. No, that's excellent. Well, thanks for... Sorry, thanks very much for your time, Mark. I greatly appreciate it, and we certainly wish you all the best of luck and support over the next few months, and certainly over the previous several months of recovery after the fires and getting through that tumultuous period. But I wonder whether we can ask you to: is there a particular place that you would like to send listeners of the podcast to in order to find more about you and more about the Blue Mountains?
Look, I mean, I think what I would say is finding out more about me is boring, so don't worry about that. But
that's what I did yesterday, Mark. I had to spend a bit of time finding out about you. You got to. What I'd say is when in the right circumstances, the best thing people can do to find out about us is come and see us. That's what we will need, and in the right circumstances. People can come now. It's not like we're closed. We're not, but obviously there are rules around social distancing and things like that. But you can still come. So the best way to learn about us is to come and see us, and you'll find a very welcoming, wonderful community when you do.
No, it's fantastic. Well, thanks very much, Mark. Greatly appreciate your time. And again, best of luck over the next few months, particularly in the recovery of COVID-19. And obviously stay safe and stay COVID-free, comrade.
Thank you, comrades. I'll do just that. And you guys have a wonderful day.
Yes, enjoy. Yeah, well, enjoy the social distancing.
Yeah, I will. I'll enjoy the splendid isolation.
Man, I've been practicing social distancing for years, so I'm way ahead of everything.
Yeah. I was doing it before it was cool.
Yeah, that's right. We had no friends beforehand, so
I love it.
No, it's a very different time. But thanks, guys. That was great. Thank you.
No, thank you very much.